and welcome to the webinar. Today, of course, is Thursday, November 2nd, 2017, our regularly scheduled webinar. So I do want to welcome each and every one of you to the webinar today. A couple of things I want to go over, and then I want to get into a kind of a learning, kind of show some examples of some stocks that have bottomed at the end. And then we'll look at some live charts because we've had some pretty rocky earnings moves today. Okay, starting out again with the long-term charts. Now, these are the monthly charts for the major indexes. Okay, we've got the S&P 500, upper band 2439. And the close the other day was 25.75. So you can see we are about 130, 140 points above the upper band. The Dow upper band is 21,221, closing for the month of October 23,377. So about 2,000 points above the upper band. The NASDAQ composite is about 10% above the upper band. And then here's gold. I'm just showing the metal here today because of what's going on with gold. I mean, as you can see here, it's been really in a horizontal trading range for the last few years. Okay, so we know one or two things are going to happen. Either it's going to break out or it's going to break down. Okay, at some point it should start moving. When, I don't know. Now here's crude oil. And again, this is the actual spot price. Now, the thing that I've been talking about with the spot price has been the fact that I felt there would be a retest of the mid-band, being 55.58. You can see last month now, oil closed out at 54.38, so it's $1.20 below the mid-band. Now, we know one or two things is going to occur here, okay? Oil will punch through the mid-band and continue higher, or it will be repelled here, okay? Those are the alternatives, okay? But what's kind of unique about this is that it's sitting right at that level or just below that level on its long-term monthly chart. And then here's Apple, upper band 145.42, closed the month out of 169. So again, about $24, $25 above the upper band. And by the way, they do report this afternoon after the close. So it should be, very interesting to see what Apple does. Okay, now here are the intraday charts. Here's the 60-minute chart for the S&P 500. The main level that we were looking for the market to achieve was 25.7810. And by the way, these are all done through the end of the month, so I didn't update them for yesterday's price action. But here's the thing. Yesterday, we did actually close about 25.7810. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens at the close today if we manage to be able to close above that level. I think if we do close above it, I think you see this market continue to go higher. But the blue lines are the confirming lines. So 25.97 is the next line up. On the downside, we've got 25.58. And then here's the short-term 30-minute chart. You can see the major line, 25.78, has been trending to the upside. And here's the VIX. The VIX actually did cross into an uptrend on the 60 a few days back. Okay. And I would say it's been pretty much confined between the 938 and the 1250 levels. And I still feel that every time the VIX does rally, it should probably be repelled. Okay, now here's the QQQ. Okay, the objective right now is to the 153.13 line. That's why it's got the blue star there. The support line underneath the market is 150. Underneath that is 143.75. That's a major support line too. The Qs, you can see it's still in a strong uptrend on the 30. And now here's the market that's been kind of bouncing around, the IWM. It traded above the 150 line, could not get above the 150.78, and now it's been kind of bouncing between the 147 and 150 line. And then we look at the shorter term chart, you can see that the 30-minute chart had crossed into a downtrend. So again, we've got a 60 trending up, 30 down, which tells me that this market should probably be a little rocky for a while. Okay, and you can see where two instances it actually violated the lower band on the 30. And then here's the TLT, 60-minute chart, downtrend. Okay, it's been spiking up. I believe the 125 line should be strong resistance. So it'll be interesting to see if that can get above there. And then here's the 30-minute. The 30-minute actually crossed into a downtrend a few days back. So now we have a 60 down and 30 down. Okay, so any rally at this point, in my mind, would need to be counter trend. And then here's the FXY. I showed this because it's virtually the same chart, if you will, as the TLT. And then we get into gold. Here's gold. You can see a downtrend in gold as well, similar to the FXY, similar to TLT. You can notice here, with something very interesting I wanted to point out about the gold here, is when it rallied back, it stalled right at the mid-band there. And that's usually a pretty decent low-risk short. And then here's Apple, okay? Apple was interesting because it held the 156.25 line. And it screamed and actually took out two levels in a couple of days. Took out the 162.5 and went all the way up to the 169 level. And now it's pulled back. But as you can see, a little bit overbought here, trading well above the upper band on the 60. And if you scale down to the 30, you can see how overbought it is here as well. So, I would not be tempted to go long here into earnings. And then here's the XLE. Now, I'm showing the daily chart because what's been interesting about the XLE is it took out the mid-band on the daily. And it basically spent a few weeks just kind of consolidating at that level. Then it broke under. It looked like it was going to fail. And now the past few days, it's gotten back above that mid-band. So again, showing some strength. All right, that's what I wanted to show. Now, here's an interesting formation. This is what I want to share. I call it the bottoming formation, okay? And I'm using this stock Unity Group as an example. Just bear with me. Okay. Now, here's the formation. A couple of things that are unique to this particular stock. It broke under the lower bands twice. First time back here in August, and then it continued to slide from there, finally hitting a low of roughly 14 a share. And now the question becomes, okay, now how do we know or anticipate if a stock is trying to form a bottom? Well, this is the pattern I'm looking for. I'm looking strictly at this ADX line down here. As you can see, as the stock's continuing down, the ADX line is climbing. Then ultimately it flattens out. Then it starts to turn down. Okay, so step one is the line is heading up, begins to flatten out, then it starts to turn down. And at that point, that's when you want to start looking for an entry. Okay. Now, if I look at this chart, I've added one other indicator. That's the indicator down here at the bottom. It's the MACD. This is the MACD down here. It's a moving average convergence divergence. Okay, now, as this is happening, here's effectively stage one. ADX line is heading up, starts to peak out, and then two, it starts to head down. And this is and by the way, the higher the ADX line is, typically the better or more reassuring So, for example, you typically want to see this ADX line over 40. In the case of unit here, it hit almost 60. So that's even better. Now, the point here is this. We've got the ADX line starting to turn down. That's stage 2. Stage 3, we see down here that the MACD had crossed to positive. And notice how it remains positive. And then the fourth stage is here. The plus D1 crosses above the minus D1. And then the stock proceeds to head up, okay? And, just as an example, I bought the stock in here. I think it was in here at 1520. And what was kind of interesting about this stock was that 1520, I was able to sell the $15 call for November for 40. So, I say, well, yeah, you're going to lose 20 cents, but yeah, I'll end up picking up a net of 120, okay, just by selling the call. And the reason I did that was because earnings were going to be reported. I believe they're reported today. And as long as the stock remains above 15, I'm pretty happy. Okay. So that's what I like to do. As these stocks are bottoming, I have a tendency to try to sell calls against the stocks. Now, here's another example. This is MDC. Okay. And here's the formation. Again, you can see the ADX line heading up, peaks out, starts to head down. Here's where the MACD flips positive. And from that point, the stock's up about 20% in about 2 months. And then following, by the way, the crossover, we have the plus D1. So again, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. And here's another stock, DIN. Now, this is an interesting example because you can see the formation happened twice. And the first time it failed. Happened over in here. So this pivot low is about 42, actually went to 41, bounced up to about 44, actually went lower. And then it formed the pattern again. So, the question, or I guess the suggestion here is, had you entered here, you were just early on the entry. Because you can see at this point, the stock is trading above any of the price levels down in the lows down in here. So, one thing to consider with this type of setup is, let's say you were buying call options. Maybe you put on half your position here, add the other half here. And then, of course, as it turns and proceeds to head up, you have a really nice trade. And then here's one more example. This was Grainger, okay? And again, this spells it out down here. ADX line peaks and heads down. The line was almost 75. And then it took a few months before the inevitable rally. And again, this is an interesting example because once it started to rally, okay, in my mind, the objective is usually back to the mid-band, and that's exactly where the stock went. And, interestingly enough, I had priced out calls on this. This is one that I did look at to perhaps suggest a trade on, but the calls were really, really thin. So it really didn't make sense, which was a shame because this obviously was a really nice trade in a few months. But you can see here where the buy should be. Okay, that's what I wanted to cover today. And then what I want to do is look at a couple of live stocks. Okay. All right. Now, we had Tesla reporting today. All right. Now, Tesla gapped down about $22, and it's under the lower band here. So let's take a quick look. Tesla. All right, negative daily money flow. But this is kind of interesting. Tesla's sitting right on the mid-band on the daily. Now, I'm biased to the downside here because we have had a close underneath the low of the gap bar. So I'd be inclined to sell a rally here. All right, so here's the 10-minute chart. So ideally, if Tesla gets overbought short term, would probably be a good short. Let's take a look. There were a couple others that reported. Yeah, this is one I saw. Look at the drop on this. Down 31% on Treehouse Foods. Ouch. This is, again, this is probably a really great example of why you really don't want to put on new positions going into earnings. I mean, you're down 30% here overnight. Of course, unless you hedged it or did some sort of a strategy like that. Let's see what Shack is doing. All right, so Shack is down now $1.25. Let me see the daily. Okay, positive money flow here, but gapped up and gave back all its gains plus a little more. Interesting. Yeah, this pretty much sold off the upper band right from the get-go. And, again, these bands, are obviously incredibly helpful because, if you see that and it's stalling around the upper band, I mean, you'd probably be very disinclined to go long. Question is, would you go short? All right, that's the question. Now, Facebook is down about 4. And here's a stock that had a really incredible jump. $15 move on FleetCor. And again, trading above the upper band, okay, just exhibiting a tremendous amount of strength. By the way, if let's scale down to a 10 on FleetCor. All right, well, it pretty much had that really strong bar right at the open. So, this hasn't really given you an opportunity to get in it. And ULTI jumped a bit. QCOM, let's see what they're doing. Wow, look at the rally that QCOM made. But look where it started from. Started at the lower band yesterday. Not much there. All right, so this Clovis gap down, and then RL reported as well. All right, so they gapped up, were above the upper band, and basically sold right off. Let's see what the daily looks like. All right, and not giving you a tremendous indication on the daily, but the daily just crossed into an uptrend recently. And this is another one I picked up, this Teradata. Jumped 13% today off their earnings. And this is a low price stock. Really strong, gapped up above the upper band on the daily. It's a nice setup. Okay, well, that's what I wanted to cover today. If there's any questions, if there's any questions, shoot them on through. If not, I'm going to close down. Starting to get some of these oil companies moving up. All right, this is interesting. XLE is starting to get close to crossing into an uptrend. 60's down, 30 close to an uptrend. I'd really like to see this cross into an uptrend, okay, and start looking at some oil stocks, because I think we take out that mid band on the monthly, this could be a strong move. Okay, anyway, that's what I wanted to cover today. I do want to thank everybody for being here, and I look to see you again in 2 weeks. Thank you.